I worry that sometimes we're so darn interested in just jazzing up the fear factor that, sometimes people's ability to think for themselves is paralyzed if they're frightened enough. And that's not where I want people to be. I want people to say, we're going to get through this. I'm going to use my head. I'm going to go to different sources. I'm going to listen to different sources. And I'm going to think for myself, because that's what America's about.
Do you know about the negative health effects of wearing a mask for 8 to 10 hours a day? Do you know what that can actually do to you? So I do have Liam here with me today. You guys are going to hear him. However, we don't have the camera up and running, so we've got a photo of him sitting there in the corner. We are just going to start with this article that we mentioned right in the title. New York Governor Cuomo forced homes for the developmentally disabled to take in corona-stricken. So let's discuss what exactly is going on here, because according to this, a group home in Bayville, New York, for people with disabilities, almost all of the residents had tested positive for coronavirus. Governor Andrew Cuomo allowed homes for the developmentally disabled, high risk, to have staff who had been exposed to COVID weeks before he had prohibited these homes from turning someone away for having COVID. There were numerous reports that nursing homes, assisted and congregate care centers were the most vulnerable to coronavirus. So I'm looking here, and don't worry, because there's a bunch of other things that are going to pop up as far as Andrew Cuomo and his response to coronavirus. But this is one of the big ones that we think we should be bringing up in this channel today, because there's not just in the developmentally disabled homes, in the long-term care homes, like homes for older people. There was also people who were COVID positive who were being sent to actually work there, or you had patients, so you had older people who had tested positive for coronavirus that were sent back to the homes that they were already in. So we're not actually, we were isolating, but we're isolating them back into specifically high-risk homes. And this is, I get to talk to people, and then I get to hear that Andrew Cuomo is one of the best in the response to coronavirus. Talking about Dr. Birx, we are going to discuss what's going on with the CDC numbers. According to Dr. Birx, so this is not, we're not into Alex Jones tier conspiracy or anything like that. We're literally giving you the information provided by the people who we're told that we're supposed to be relying on for information right now. According to Dr. Birx herself, the CDC could be inflating death numbers by as much as 25%. So why is it that long past the peak of the virus, the number of deaths continue to skyrocket beyond what the revised government models predicted? On Saturday, the Washington Post reported that Dr. Deborah Birx, the White House Coronavirus Task Force Response Administrator, is accusing the CDC of using an antiquated model to track coronavirus deaths that could be responsible for inflating the death numbers by as much as 25%. The Post cites 4 unnamed sources who reported a dispute between Birx and Robert Redfield, the director of the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, last Wednesday over the modeling. There is nothing from the CDC that I can trust, Birx reportedly said, according to 2 of the Post sources. If the 25% inflation number is true, that would place the total deaths closer to 66,000 death figure that the government predicted in April. we have a lot of articles to actually dig through to paint the larger picture of what we see going on here. So as we go through these, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a little bit more content from the side that we need to pull in. So we're going to try to organize this as much as we can to make it as crystal clear as possible, kind of what the whole picture being painted is. We're on Breitbart.com because China calls for a global media takeover by Belt and Road News Network. So what's going on here? The CCP, so the Chinese Communist Party, have made the decision that what they need to do is essentially take over the news of the entire world because, well, they're getting racially discriminatory messages from certain Western nations that refuse to stop asking questions about where the Wuhan coronavirus came from. So what's going on? China's telling us right now that they believe they should be able to take over the news because it's not good for China that we're questioning where the coronavirus came from. And the reason why we're questioning where the coronavirus came from is because we were told that it came from, well, what, bat soup?
Yep.
So bat soup was the reason why coronavirus is out and it's in the world. And the issue with that is that that was the original story. That was what we were told, and that was the basis of what caused this entire pandemic. But as time has gone on and multiple countries have been looking into this, multiple countries have had the ability to actually test this. You have the United States intelligence departments that believe that it came from the Wuhan lab. You've got the Dean Koontz book from the 1980s. What is that called? Heart of Darkness, where we wrote about this. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Just one sec. Dean Koontz, Heart. So, I mean, realistically, I guess you're technically going into conspiracy realm once you start talking about like the Dean Koontz book, but I think it should bother people when we look up and see that Dean Koontz wrote The Eyes of Darkness in 1981, describing the Wuhan 400 virus. Fans of the author, Dean Koontz, are insisting the novel he wrote in 1981 predicted the coronavirus outbreak.
Better diagnostics, treatment, and a safe and effective vaccine.
COVID-19 diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccines.
Largement le développement et le déploiement rapide de diagnostics, vaccins et traitements efficaces.
Universal access to vaccination, treatment and diagnostics.
Equitable access to new COVID diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccine.
We must all work together on improving diagnostics, accelerating therapies, and ultimately developing a vaccine.
We need to make vaccines, treatment, and diagnostics accessible to everyone.
Vaccines, treatments and diagnosis will be the most effective way to do it.
We need new diagnostics, vaccines, treatments, and an equal distribution to all.
On equitable access to diagnostics, treatments and vaccines.
And affordability of the vaccines, therapeutics and diagnostics.
In order to develop the treatments and vaccines.
I've been in law enforcement for 10 years, and I'm speaking to my peers, other fellow officers, people in any kind of law enforcement position. I've seen officers nationwide enforcing tyrannical orders against the people, and I'm hoping it's the minority of officers, but I'm not sure anymore, because every time I turn on the television, every time I look to the internet, I'm seeing people arrested or cited for going to church, for traveling on the roadways, for going surfing, opening their businesses, going to the park with their families, or doing nails out of their own house. using their own house as a place of business, and having undercover agents go there and arrest them and charge them with what?